Cloud. Go.
Okay.
Got it. Got it.
Hi, everybody.
Good evening, small group.
Like a small cluster meeting.
Screens.
Yeah.
Yep. And I've just lost the 3 things we had on there. Where'd the email go? Number 1, filling the vacancy for club president for 22-23. Thanks to Steve's generosity, we've found one.
Hey.
I think
Thanks
Steve
to my
even
wife
realized he was
twisting
on
my
our
arm and
radar, but
telling me
he
to
just,
suck
in
it
our
up.
minds, got bumped up.
Yeah.
We probably should say thanks to Steve's wife, actually.
Indeed. She gave me an idea just this week. Her gig right now in retirement is being the collegiate regional director for her sorority, covering 3 states and Ontario, Canada. And our trip of 1,700 miles up to Minneapolis for a football game and back, she started having texts and phone calls and having to type on the keyboard on her iPad in the car, starting the day we left, and was even texting during the football game in the rain, dealing with stuff that happened over this long weekend and the week leading up to it in her sorority. So I realized there is nothing that's going to happen in this club anywhere close to that. I think I can deal with it if she can deal with all that.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. I think you'll be fine.
Well,
In
now
fact,
I'm
you'll be
actually
able to
looking
go,
forward
oh,
to it.
she's at that again. I'm going to retreat into my hour of Rotary.
Well, in actuality, Steve was slated to be the following year. So all we're doing is moving him up 1 year in the progression. So it would, I mean, he
Yeah.
is. The most,
Yeah. I wasn't sure if Steve knew that, though.
Oh, yeah, he did.
He did?
Oh, boy.
Well, you get lots, as I said. you get lots-
So we will have to get,
Whoops.
Uh-oh.
so Jim, we will have to get that approved, correct?
Yeah, we should have, we'll formally.
Yeah, we'll send out to all the board members and get a feedback, a final vote. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
once we've got that, I can go in on DACDB and change around the notifications.
Yeah.
The labels.
Yeah. And if they do the online, what they did last year, they did online for a couple of hours once a month for about 4 months. And then you also jumped into the Rotary Training Center and did some modules in there, which didn't take, I think they said it would take 24 hours, but it took about 6. Depends how quick you read and click. But there's enough, like, I think that gives you a pretty good insight into coming in as well, which is good.
Yeah, the biggest thing is to get it done now because the governor-elect, which is Diane Savage, is already sending out emails and assumes Joe is the president-elect, and I'm sure he's not forwarded on anything that what he has gotten. So we need to get you in the mailing list so you get in the loop. I know they have 4 online training sessions that I received that I can forward that on to you. And I forward the one on to you, which
Yeah, you did.
first one will be in September. So
Yeah, I
you can
signed
get-
up for that.
you can get involved with that one, and the other ones are later. And then
The,
whatever.
Only thing that might interfere with that one, I'm on call for jury duty for the first
Oh,
time in
okay.
my life that week.
Well, they'll have a recording of it too. I see they have a backup
Yeah.
recording. So if you can't do it live, they'll have one you can watch.
And this
And
won't
they're
mean
pretty
anything to-
good.
Oh, I was gonna say, this won't mean anything to you, Dee, but this town that I live in has the Ohio State University that both Jim and I attended, and our little football team. Oh, and yes, Miss Sue as well. I forgot. Anyway, we are so nuts about our football team. I had a subpoena last month that said I was supposed to be on call this week, and we'd already made the arrangements to drive up to Minneapolis for this football game. So I called the officer of the court and said, "Hi, can I get a deferral?" And he said, "Why is that?" "We're going to the OSU football game." "Oh, no problem." In Columbus, that's an excuse.
In Australia, so AFL, so our football, the AFL players and the NRL, which is the rugby, them and we call them their wags, their wives and girlfriends and their kids are the only ones that are allowed to go between state borders.
Oh,
Mhm.
you get the dispensation to keep going.
It's very contentious, and we're all sick of it. But it just seems to be they're allowed to go, and then the premier goes, "Oh, sorry, I made a mistake, but they're here now." Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, this is the first time we really were in any big venue with a lot of people. But I now have an idea what it must be like for a Muslim woman to wear a burqa and a veil. As we're walking through this concourse, the only place you're required to wear a mask. We're in our rain ponchos. We've got our masks on. And I mean, we're just sort of shuffling through there like we're in our burqas, and so far, COVID free.
Okay, so we need to send that out to the board to get the board to approve that so that Steve can move through. Thank you. And I guess we'll also need to start looking for the following year's president as well, so that we're not in a situation that we don't have one lined up. Whether it'd be probably better to hold off till next month, I think, when the rest of the board are here to have a discussion about how we want to go about that, whether we want to actually start to get some broader indication from members that may be interested in the next couple of years or not.
Right. Yeah, again,
hold
if Rotary hasn't changed anything, we have to have our slate approved and ready by December 31st. So we're, that's what we're shooting for.
Cool. All right. That's item 1 done. Thank you so much, Steve. And I hope you have a fun year as well.
Hope so.
Oh, and we'll discuss the programming stuff next month as well. I think that would be when the others are around as well. So item 2 we had was Steve, the other Steve, was to present the board a proposal for an online Rotary Youth Exchange program. So 2 of us, Jim and I, have actually caught up with Steve. So I guess we know about it. Steve probably knows about it anyway. But Steve Miller doesn't. So you do have somebody to talk to, Steve.
Well, that's good.
And the others will know, of course, they're going to watch the recording.
I kind of put together just a really short presentation that I'll use you as guinea pigs this evening. And if everything looks reasonable and that type of thing, then I'll do the same thing next Monday at the regular meeting. I have on the bottom of my screen here, it says share screen, Jim. So if I click on that, will I show something? Okay,
Yeah.
well.
Click on that and then open up your document.
Okay.
You'll be on so you're on your screen. Yeah, so go ahead.
Okay, so I should, let's see, it should be coming up, and I'm not sure why.
Click the one that says beginning of slides.
Oh, from beginning, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there we
There you
go.
go.
All right. The Ohio Pathways Youth Initiative is what I've called this thing, and the subtopic, of course, is a virtual youth exchange. Let's see here. How do I, maybe I hit this button. Okay. So basically, to ensure that everybody's on the same page, I don't know how much any one of our members know about youth exchange and what's involved and all this kind of stuff. So basically, I have, just a little bit of commentary as to the programs. Youth Exchange is a program where two people work within the system in order to gain a cultural and educational experience with a country or a person they're exchanging with. Up until just a couple months ago, there were really two distinct types of exchanges. One was a long-term exchange. This is where a student leaves us, who we're sponsoring, to go to Australia for a one academic year exchange, and then a person from Australia then will either come back to our district or another district within Ohio Erie and do the same thing at this end. There's also a short-term exchange, and it's basically a family to family and happens over the summer months. Our student would go abroad for about 4 to 6 weeks, stay with the family that they're exchanging students with. And at the end of that 4 to 6 weeks, the host student will come back to the US and stay the same amount of time with the student that exchanged with them earlier. For whatever reason, the short-term exchange doesn't seem to be as good a precursor to a one-year program as what a lot of us would think. And because the cost is so much less and the logistics are almost non-existent, I can't understand in this program why there aren't more short-term students, stepping up in the program. And then what we're here talking about this evening is the third type of exchange, which is the virtual exchange. And I just said that this is a new program and the definition is to be created by us to move forward. And in parentheses, I kind of indicated that a little of my thought in it being a 2 to 3 week program with video interaction, cultural information exchanges, student to student, guest speakers, and actually a project that will start at the beginning of the exchange and end in the second or third week. So hopefully that clears the water as far as definition on what a exchange is. The vision that I would like to present is a program that is 2 to 3 weeks in duration, and it's accomplished via electronics or Zoom. And the program itself needs to touch on a number of different elements which are requirements by Rotary International with respect to exchanges in general. So, once we have an introduction to youth exchange programs for these students, hoping that the virtual will serve as a launching pad with younger students into the short-term or the long-term program once they get into high school. The rules of the exchange, and these are the things I referred to, come down from RI. But some of these rules include a thorough understanding of what student protection is all about and sexual abuse and all that type of thing. And I'm still trying to figure out how all that could happen when you're in a Zoom environment. But that's the rules of the game that we have to play. And then someplace in there is a storytelling and picture exchange, video exchange type things, where each student can share their culture, their families, their communities and those types of things with the person on the other end of the exchange and vice versa. And this is one of the greatest way of having an icebreaker, I guess, between two individuals that I can think of. And projects will be developed under a project template so that the students don't have to figure out how is the best way to go about engaging into a project. And I think some of these things could be as simple as going and collecting particular items in their community and giving them away to something else. The guest speakers, I think, put a little bit of spice into the program so that students are just not on a Zoom call for an hour, multiple times throughout the week. And so guest speakers, I think, are important. And youth exchange is one of those things where long-term, we hope that they learn and understand what Rotary is all about, such that they will want to get involved with Rotary clubs and that type of thing. So they need to know a little bit about Rotary, and that's kind of where a Rotarian could fill that bill. And I'd also like to have a person that's a Rotec student or something like that, that was a Rotarian multiple years ago, as well as a student that has just returned recently. And there's nothing better than to have students to students talking about their experiences. And it's the best sales tool you can ever come across. And then to wrap up the program, some sort of a graduation exercise that will help instill all the concepts that they experienced during this virtual exchange, so that they'll leave, go back to their schools or wherever, and talk about what it was that they did and the experience that they had. So that's the vision of the virtual program as I kind of see it. To develop this program, being a Rotary Youth Exchange program sanctioned by RI, we must play the game within the confines of District 6600, because it's the district that is certified for exchanges, and we're certified for both inbound and outbound. So again, seems kind of ridiculous when we're using Zoom, but so be it. We need to make sure that the program is managed by vetted and trained Rotarians. So if you're going to be a leader in the program, you background checked and go through some of the basic training on, how to be a counselor or how to be a youth exchange officer, or, that type of thing. And by all means, the program has got to adhere to student protection guidelines and student training within that. In addition to kind of defining what the program is, we need a committee that has people that are passionate about youth and the programs that they have available to them. And for the course of the overall development, we're going to need a trainer, and that person can be teaching the elements of student protection and a few of those other kinds of things. Definitely need an IT administrator for Zoom, and don't look at me for that. I can't even get my picture straightened out. And then we got to develop content for this particular, for the 2 to 3 weeks that we're going to be together. Following the basic format that the other exchange programs follow, the club needs to identify an individual, we call them the youth exchange officer, but they are the conduit between what we're doing as a club and the district. They need to know what we're doing. And then for the student, we need to identify a person that's going to be the counselor. And, this person can serve as a conduit between the club and the student as far as answering questions and a few of those kinds of things as the program progresses. And then the more subject matter experts that we can pull together, the better off this program is going to be. So those that have been exchange students in the past, regardless of how many years ago it has been, those that have worked actively as club administrators for the program and those kinds of things, those people would be greatly appreciated in being committee volunteers. Goals and objectives then of the program is I would like to think of this as being a program targeting the middle school students first and foremost, and then followed on by high school students themselves. And we've had a real difficult time over the years trying to get into middle school with literature or anything of that nature. But if you know somebody that's a student that's in middle school, we snag them on the outside and get them involved, and then they can go back and continue to plant the seeds of interest for future virtual exchanges at that age level. I think that once we have a well-defined program, that instead of just thinking in terms of like the other programs, one person per year, certainly that's a good place to start. But if you're only working with students for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, I could see the feasibility of having 4 virtual exchange programs per year. And that would really be cool, because then our program would be connecting with 8 students every year for potential interest in exchange in their future. And, once we get this program really down pat, we can it and make it available to other e-clubs or any other club within the district that might want to participate in the virtual program. And I think there needs to be a follow-up effort that encourages virtual students to become involved with this thing. And that's part of what I think that the counselor can be involved with, is continually putting the idea in students' minds that, this 2 or 3 weeks, it's great, but wouldn't it be even nicer if you had a whole summer of an exchange, or even a full academic year studying abroad. So beyond that, that's what I've got at this point.
Great.
Clear as mud, huh? Yeah.
Oh, really good.
Okay, thanks for actually putting some clarity on our discussions the other day, Steve. It's great.
Well, I don't want to do it alone. I don't know that I can do it alone. And we've got a very unique membership with a number of people having been exchange students before or working in the program. And the other thing that's so wonderful about an e-club environment like ours is the participation and membership that goes beyond the US border, and it shows up around the world. So we don't have to do a whole heck of a lot of shaking of the bushes to get students identified globally to participate, which is very similar, of course, to what the short-term and long-term programs are all about. And we can do that all within our own confines of our club. And we can make all kinds of mistakes and nobody really cares. We get the job done. And so I think it's, if our members are really interested in youth programs, Certainly this virtual program is a great opportunity. The only bad part about it is so much of it has to be defined by us. And we have some documentation that came from Essex Multi-District, which is a good starting point for us. We don't have to reinvent the whole wheel. And but if you go to a Rotary and you ask them if anything specific about a virtual exchange, what kind of a program you might want to develop, they have no more experience than we do in this new concept. So we are forging new borders here with this program. And I think it just goes very, very well with what our E-Club is all about.
Have you thought about trying to have a small meeting with the students that we've got that were exchange students and get their feedback on sort of your outline and that?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I don't want to develop this thing in a vacuum. And outside of our club, there's plenty of kids in the district that are former youth exchange people. And I would be surprised if they wouldn't be interested in helping out this thing. And
Well, I'd start with our own people. I mean, we've got
5.
5. And I would think a discussion with them would be a beginning point to see how they see this sort of going together. If we
Well,
can get
that's,
them together, I don't know.
that's what I was kind of alluding to as far as the program development. The club, as far as an exchange is concerned, we need to identify 2 people in our club. One to be a youth exchange officer and the other to be a counselor, and get those 2 vetted and get them trained in what we believe this program is. But they would be just part of the overall committee that the volunteer that I alluded to too. If you need a trainer, a Zoom administrator, and people to help with the content itself as part of the program development, club support, the YEO and the counselor, and then subject matter experts, however many we can get. So
And the counselor should be same-sex match. You shouldn't have a female counselor with a male student. So you-
well, that's true with the existing programs, and I would, you know, I have no real concern whether it stays that way or it's anybody. And then the other question that I think we need to address is it is a virtual exchange only between the 2 same sexes, or could they be, you know, boy-girl type thing? You know, they only see each other, you know, via Zoom. And then likewise for the counselor, within this short period of time, I think there'll be more questions relative to the program or how to do certain things than there's going to be problems to resolve, which is quite a bit different than the other exchange programs. And I also see that the counselor possibly being the main person that the students always see. They would always log on at the same time with the counselor for any quick updates or whatever, and then they're on their own.
Mhm.
And so it's almost like a facilitator, I guess, of the program over the 2 or 3 weeks
Right.
that they're working it.
What, the 2 or 3 weeks, where did that time frame come from?
Well,
Do you think it can be really established in 2 or 3 weeks? I mean, even the short term in the summer was a month.
well, again, you're probably right, and it's going to be a challenge anyway, doing this virtually versus talking to somebody face to face. But the overall program will keep the time flowing quite well. And when you talk about storytelling and picture sharing and all this kind of stuff, you might spend the first week doing nothing more than back and forth talking about family and community and those kinds of things, showing off pictures and this type of thing, since you can't be there. And so how many days does that take? So again, 2 to 3 weeks. If it was any shorter than that, I don't think it'd hardly even be worth it. If it
No.
needs to
And
be
I would think
longer,
it's longer.
yeah, if it's longer, I mean, and we're being productive within a given program so that we can keep things moving, then I think that that would be fine too. The number of weeks comes from the 1 year, a year or so ago, that Ohio Erie had a virtual short-term program, and they set it up for 4 weeks. And what they found is that by the time the 3rd and 4th week were starting to come into play, students were basically dropping out of the program because it was getting boring or whatever. And so to go that long, knowing what I do about what happened before, that's
Yeah.
where the 2 to 3 weeks kind of came into play.
Would they be
So
in
it's-
contact with each other each day? Is that how?
I think depending on what the task is that they're supposed to be working on. Yeah, you might want to do it maybe every other day to get started so that they can get pictures or whatever it is to show off their family and community and that type of stuff. And then, of course, the other challenge that we have is the time zone differences. And, as to when's the best time for students to actually do things. So, and the Aussies will always be a day ahead of us. Yes.
Well,
So-
here they use, and that's where Zoom has its limitations. I think you'll have a lot of informal other stuff that occurs around the outside, and that's what happens here. Is that the example here? They use Snapchat. Don't ask me how they use it. They use Snapchat, and they can, rather than sending a text now because they're too lazy to type, they just record a snippet of them talking as a video and they send it. So from here, Brides does it. She sends it to Elisa overseas, who was supposed to have an exchange student. And then when she wakes up, she's France. When she wakes up, she does it back. And they have this ongoing conversation. So they effectively talk every day, but it might just be 30 seconds or a minute or whatever they happen to comment on. And that's how it's really interesting. Like Bridie and her have built up a rapport over the last 6 months to the point that they can't wait for the borders to open and actually see each other, like simply by Snapchat. So they've never done a Zoom. Like that's, it's that informal build up, a bit like a friendship happens. Like, I guess what I was going to say to you, Steve, was that I think you should set up a time in the meeting for those that are interested, and definitely target some as well, and put that into your last slide or whatever, so that next week when you present it, it's there's a date, time set, and then you can go straight out and pop it onto the Facebook page to say it's up there as well. And you might end up putting a poll going, yes, I can attend the meeting. No, I can't attend the meeting, but yes, I'm interested. Because for instance, Dan can evidence, and then I know that like William's very keen to be involved. So that was my thought too. That way you can use that meeting as a first meeting in September to get a group together, so that then you can go through some of those, how long you're going to have it, all that other sort of detail, and who wants to be involved and who wants to take on those roles. And then you could come back to the October meeting potentially with some of that detail filled in.
Okay. Well, that's good direction for the days.
It's open for feedback. It's not direction. It's open for feedback. It's two-way here.
You're the boss. I mean, what can I say?
I don't direct.
That Snapchat, how did that get started? That sounds fascinating, because to me, that seems to be what you would want to build up. You'd want to build up this long-term exchange of ideas and phrases and communication so that the kids want to get together. I just don't see it happening in 3 weeks.
Well, I
I'm
think that
sorry,
you-
I just,
Yeah.
Well,
You
I
set up
think
the structure, you-
that the basic program could be 2 to 3 weeks, but the residual from the program will end up being, lifetime Snapchatting after the fact.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that the program provides them more than just being like pen pals electronically. And has a very specific program which educates them on Rotary and the programs that Rotary has, as well as get them used to sharing certain kinds of information. I'm aware of Snapchat conversations that go on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they go on so long because as they're traveling down the road of a particular topic, they get sidetracked and head off in a totally different direction. Sometimes they never make it back to the main
Yeah,
road.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I think you keep your structure, you use your Zoom, you keep your structure, but you don't write it in such a way that it excludes them from finding other communication mediums. In fact, they're encouraged to find additional communication other than the scheduled Zooms, for instance.
Okay.
The other thing I think I was thinking of is that I know that our exchange students we've had here get a lot out of the clustering, in that there'll be, says 12 or 15 would come to the district at once. And so, as well as staying friends with their club that they come to, the physical ones, they actually build up a very strong cohort of that 12 that all came and all shared the same experience. So I guess that's probably something to throw in the mix, is whether you just do one at a time or whether there could be benefit in doing a few at a time, for instance, so that your Zoom is more than just one or two students, just two students hanging on. There might be a few others there, or that might be something that if you're able to then get to the point of rolling it out to other clubs, that you by virtue of that get more at once.
Well, when I talked about concluding the program with some sort of graduation, something just popped in my head with what you said, and that is when our students come back off exchange, they're identified as Rotex students almost immediately. And the Rotex then continue to work between themselves after the program is over. So if part of the graduation were to introduce this concept of Rotex, if you will, so that as they graduate, they automatically become a part of the group that is exchanged. And
Yep.
that group will continue to get larger and larger and larger, over time.
Yeah.
And heavens knows what kinds of world problems a group like that can solve.
We might end up with a Rotaract club that's virtual.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, if this presentation is something you think will fly for next Monday, I will try this week to identify some of the people that have shown interest in the past and get a list started so we can weed it out from the next meeting and then actually get started on something.
What we should do for next week, we have our speaker, and we want to do her first.
Yeah.
And then you would follow up with that, and then that'll leave us with plenty of dialogue that we could have, that those that are interested are going to stay around, want to talk.
yeah,
about it.
and I'm not sure, I mean, when I told Tina the program, I said, we usually meet for an hour. So I don't know what her time limit is going to be. I mean, I told her that to concentrate on how to get started with the Operation Pollination, and then we do a follow-up with some more information. So I don't know how she's going to approach this, but
And Sue's gonna ask for her bio, and we'll
Yeah.
send that to you, Dee, and you can introduce.
I was going to say, do you want me to introduce her? Or do
Yeah,
you
that's the
want
way
me
we've
to
been
pass-
doing it.
Okay,
I mean,
cool.
normal clubs whoever gets the program introduces them, but we've just been having the president introduce them, so. Because you're in control when it starts and it just seems to flow better that way.
Yeah, that's fine. So we might end up with half a meeting about that and half about Steve,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
usually.
I've been a district governor before, so I know how to be flexible.
Yeah, yeah, I know,
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, we used to have, you have your module speeches. You got a 10-minute, you got your regular half-hour speech. Then you got a
Yeah.
20-minute speech, 15-minute speech, and 10 minutes.
Okay.
And then, hello, it was nice to meet you speech.
Well, that's about what had happened a time or two. Club would
Yeah.
forget that I was going to show up.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good.
And so we also need to look at the speakers for October, November, December, because we don't have those identified yet. So
I'd mentioned to Steve about October.
I can do
you-
October.
Were you going to do the one, what, on the FAA? That's,
Well, on air
will you
traffic,
ever fly again
you
or
probably
something?
won't die next time you fly.
Okay.
that's okay. By the time we're allowed to fly here, we'll have forgotten about it.
Yeah, I can do that for October.
Okay.
Perfect. All right.
And, yeah,
I'll pop something on the Facebook group then, looking for November and December potentials. See what we can turn up.
okay, sounds good.
Cool.